Hi, welcome to the second video in this series of videos looking at Chinese poetry as featured in the Chinese drama Joy of Life, 庆余年. Today we're gonna look at 3 more poems that also come from different time periods and of different genre and style. They are 长恨歌 from Tang Dynasty, Shang from Han Dynasty, and 江城子 from Song Dynasty. Without further ado, let's dive into the first poem. 长恨歌 is one of the most famous long poem in Chinese literature history. It was written by the very famous poet Bai Juyi. If you have seen the film Legend of the Demon Cat, which I also did a review before, then you will be very familiar with this person. In the film, he's portrayed by the actor Xian, and the film is in many ways about this poet's journey of writing this very famous long poem. The poem is like a ballad of the love story between Tang Xuanzong, the Xuanzong emperor of Tang Dynasty Li Longji, and his favorite concubine, Yang Guifei. If you've dabbled in Chinese literature history or just history, you probably know the story pretty well. 长恨歌, the English translation is the Song of Everlasting Regret, which is pretty nice translation. Is 840 characters long because poetic language in Chinese often are very condensed. If you want to translate this into modern English, it turns into an essay. So obviously we don't have time to go through all the characters in this poem. I'm only going to pick 4 short lines, like 2 long sentences, that are so frequently quoted in every way in China. It's like the most renowned love poetry, which actually comes at the end of this poem, the last 2 lines. 在天愿作比翼鸟，在地愿为连理枝。天长地久有时尽，此恨绵绵无绝期。 Let me first explain what these lines mean. 在天愿作比翼鸟. In the sky, it is our wish to become birds that fly side by side. 在地愿为连理枝. On ground or on earth, we would love to be branches or trees that are intertwined with each other. 天长地久有时尽. The heaven and the earth lives long, but there is still an ending date. 此恨绵绵无绝期. This regret, though, is everlasting and there's no ending date. So that's a very literal translation. Among these 4 lines, the first 2 are the most often quoted lines. 在天愿作比翼鸟，在地愿为连理枝. It is used to describe the lovers, any kind of lovers, wherever they are, whatever form they take, they want to be together in whatever way they can. The perfect pairing that will never part. If we break down these 4 lines further, we can look at them character by character. The first line, 在天愿作比翼鸟. 在 is a preposition. It can mean at, in, on. 天 sky. 愿 wish. 作 be something, become something. 比翼鸟 比 means something are side by side. 翼 means wings. 鸟 bird. In the sky, wish to be side by side flying birds. You can see a very common thing here in Chinese poetry is there's no subject. It's not really saying us, we, who wanting to be the birds. It is a very common thing in Chinese language and also poetry to totally disregard a subject. So that writing doesn't have a particular person that it's referring to or acting as a person who is talking about whatever they're talking about. So you can decide whoever the subject is. 在地愿为连理枝. Also, preposition, at some place. 地 earth, ground, floor. 愿 wish. 为 also meaning be something. 连理枝 枝 means branch and 连理 just means the branches that are tangled together. Often in this type of trees, they can even be of different species, and they happen to grow side by side, and eventually their branches become entangled. 天长地久有时尽. 天 again, sky or heaven. 长 means long. 地 ground, earth, floor. 久 also meaning something that's been there for a long time. 久 only applies to a length in time. So the heaven and earth can be very wide and it can live for a long time, but 有时尽 有 have 时 time 尽 ending finish. So even though heaven and earth are almost everlasting, they have a long life, but they still have a time when they end. Whereas 此恨绵绵无绝期, this 恨 here in this poem, it's been translated as regret, whereas this character on itself can also mean hatred. 绵绵 is an adjective meaning something that is lasting, that is not ending, that keeps going. For example, if you stand on top of a mountain and you look at the view, everywhere you see is mountain and it's like endless rolling hills. So that is the adjective to describe things that are lasting and continuing. 无绝期, 无 means not having something. 绝 is the end, the finishing, the last of something. Qi here means time, means a period of time. So this regret will last forever and there's no ending time for it. As a very beautifully written but extremely sad and also full of imagination long poem, 长恨歌 has a very special place in Chinese literary history. And it certainly is widely regarded as this poet Bai Zhi's best work. The funny thing is, he was born much later in time. He never actually lived in the period when this love story happened. Everything was written from his imagination. But interestingly enough, his imaginative writing of this very historically famous couple ended up being the canon literature piece describing this love story. Now let's move on to the second poem that I've picked for this video. It's also recited by Xian in his glorious exhibition of his literature memory. This one is called Shang. It is a Han Yuefu. So that's the type of the poetry. It comes from Han Dynasty. And Yuefu is a particular form of poetry of that dynasty because it comes from a collection of songs and ballads written and being sung by common people. There's no record of who is the actual person who wrote this piece. Most likely, it's just a song that's being sung by many people and got really popular. It's similar to Shi Jing, that none of the specific poems really has a recorded writer. Shang is extremely famous, I think, in contemporary culture in China due to the fact that it was heavily used in the drama 还珠格格, The Return of the Pearl Princess, the classics of the late 1990s. Because in that drama, it's heavily quoted by the character Ziwei as her declaration of love. And that drama revived this poem. Not that this poem is not super famous, it's just Han Yuefu in general is not as well known as Tang Dynasty poetry or Song Dynasty poetry to contemporary people. But this particular one is probably known to every person due to the fact that the drama was so popular. So Shang is also another love poetry, talking about the type of extremely strong, loyal, never giving up love. I will first recite that for you and then we will break down the poem line by line. 上爷，我欲与君相知，长命无绝摧。山无陵，江水为竭，冬雷阵阵，夏雨雪，天地合，乃敢与君绝。So, as you can tell, it's also a pretty short poem. The title 上爷 means, oh heavens. 上, up, here means heaven. 爷 is a character that doesn't have a meaning. It's more like an exclamation. Although this Chinese character can also be pronounced as xie, but here, in this poem's case, it is pronounced as 爷, and it just means exclamation. So it's like, oh heavens. 我欲与君相知. I want to know you. Also, brackets, you know me. So I want to make myself known to you and you known to me. 我, me. I, 欲, wish, desire. 与, with, and. 君, a respectful term meaning that the person that you are addressing, it's like sir or lady. So this poem doesn't, necessarily have a gender. It can be spoken by a woman to a man or man to a woman. I mean, a man to a man, woman to a woman, doesn't matter. So, I want with you, 相知, know each other. 相 means something that happens both sides. So, one side to the other at the same time, the other side to this one. 知 means know. So, I want to get to know you and I want you to get to know me. 长命无绝摧. 长, long. 命, the current explanation of his character is it's actually taking place of another character, Ling, which means let, whereas Ming as a character in itself, it means life. Because this is written in Han Dynasty thousands of years ago, so language has changed and shifted. In Chinese ancient texts, a lot of characters actually mean different things as they are till now. So 长命 here actually means let something be long. 无绝摧, 无, not having something. 绝, again, you see this character, that means ending, that we've seen in 长恨歌. 摧 means something being broken or something being reduced. So it means I want to know you, and I want this thing to last for a long time and never be reduced or broken. 山无陵, mountain loses peaks, literal meaning. 山, mountain, 无, not having something. 陵 here means the peak, the edges of mountains. 江水为竭, river, water, as, is, dried out. 竭 means something that has totally been spent and used up. 冬雷阵阵, winter, thunder. 阵阵 is the adjective to describe the thundering, the loud voice, the drumming of the thunder. 夏雨雪, summer, rains, snow. 夏 means summer. 雨 here is pronounced with the fourth tone, so it turns that character 雨, which originally is in third tone, a noun meaning rain, into the verb version of raining something. This is also a very specific thing in ancient text. Today in modern language, we don't use that. We don't say the fourth tone of rain. That means the verb of rain. But in this poem setting, it works like that. So in summer, it rains snow, 雪. These 4 lines describe those impossible conditions under which I will give up the love. So the last bit is talking about that, but these parts are like when mountain loses its peaks and when all the rivers run dry. When thunderstorms start to happen in winter and in summer it starts to snow. Then the final line, 天地合, heaven and earth combines. So when heaven and earth crash into each other, 乃敢与君绝. Only when those things happen, then I would dare to cut our tie, to say goodbye, to give up this love. 乃敢 means all the conditions fulfilled, then dare 与君绝, with you, 绝, ending. So only when all those impossible things happen would I give up on this love. Unlike a lot of romantic poetry that has that very soft, that very lingering feelings, that sadness, that everlasting regret like 长恨歌, this poem is like a soldier, almost like a fighting spirit. I declare my everlasting love to you until the world gets totally destroyed in these impossible ways. So the energy of this poem is very raw and very straightforward. And ever since the super incredible success of the drama 还珠格格, this poem has been in contemporary Chinese people's mind. So these days, when you say these lines, 山无陵，江水为竭，冬雷阵阵，夏雨雪，天地合，乃敢与君绝, most Chinese people will know what you're talking about, and they will probably get really impressed. Now let's look at the last poem in this video, which comes from Song Dynasty. So, as you expect, it's a 宋词. The 词牌, the tonal pattern of it, like I explained in the first video, is 江城子. The poem is written by a very, very famous person in Song Dynasty named Su Shi. He's famous, his brother is famous, his sister is famous, it's like the whole family is famous in literature history. This is one of his little bit unusual poem, because he tends to write poems that are extremely open, broad, even having a little bit of that Li Bai's energy that's free-flowing, that's very male-dominant sense of his writing. But this poem is extremely different. It's his very female, very sad, very melancholy, and classic love poem. So basically, yeah, in this video, I picked all 3 as love poems. The title of this poem is quite long, so its actual title, its subtitle, its specific title, 乙卯正月20日祭梦. What does it mean? 乙卯 means the name of that particular year. If we do our modern calendar calculation, it is in the year AD 1075. 正月20日. the 20th day of the first month. So literally 5 days after Lantern Festival. 夜 means at night. 记梦 means writing down the dream. So basically, he had a dream on this evening and this night, and he wrote this poem based on his dream. This is a poem written for his long passed away wife at the time he wrote it. And it's filled with sadness, with loneliness, with a lot of emotion of the poet being far away from home and missing the person that he has lost. So I'll first recite the poem and then we're gonna break it down. And this is definitely a poem that's worth remembering. And it has been used in many Chinese dramas. 10年生死两茫茫，不思量，自难忘。千里孤坟，无处话凄凉。纵使相逢应不识，尘满面，鬓如霜。夜来幽梦忽还乡，小轩窗，正梳妆。相顾无言，唯有泪千行。料得年年肠断处，明月夜，短松冈。It's a very standard length song 词. It's not super long, but it's not tiny either. And I really do want to go into every line of this poem because it's considered to be one of the best poems in Chinese history, writing about grief, writing about love lost, writing about a living person missing their partner that has passed away. If you've seen The Return of the Condor Hero, that has the central characters as Yang Guo and Xiaolong Nu, this poem has been quoted in that drama. So let's start. 10年生死两茫茫。10年, 10 years. 生死, life and death. 两茫茫. 两 means two. 茫茫 is the adjective that describes something that is very ambiguous, that is impossible to see through, to sort out. So by the time the poet wrote this poem, his wife has passed away for 10 years. And he's describing, during those 10 years, the living and the dead are into places that can't really see each other. There's no news, obviously, from the dead, and the dead doesn't know about the living. So it's in that state of not knowing. 不思量，自难忘. 不 means not. 思量 here means thinking. Both can mean thinking. 思 is more specifically think, and 量 is like you measure something. Whether it's the size or the weight of something you measure, you 量. So here it means even when you don't think. 自难忘, 自 self. It here means by itself. 难 difficult, 忘 forget. So even when I don't really think about it, it's very difficult to forget about it. It's 10 years after the loved one passed away. You are still wondering what's going on with that person, and you don't necessarily think about them all the time, but even when you don't think, you never forget. That's what this line is trying to describe. 千里孤坟，无处话凄凉. So the poet at the time is quite far away from the tomb of his wife. 千里 means 1,000 miles. 孤坟, lonely grave. 无处话凄凉. 无, no, not having. 处, place. 话, speak, talk about something. 凄凉 means the very sad version of being alone. He's far away from that lonely grave of his wife's, and he has a lot of pain and loneliness and sadness that he wants to talk about, but he doesn't have a place to go to express because the grave is far away and the person is dead. 纵使相逢应不识. 纵使 here means even when you let something happen. 相逢, meet, encounter. 应不识, should not recognize. Even now when we meet, which is the poet and the dead wife, it should be that you wouldn't recognize me. 尘满面，鬓如霜. 尘, dust, 满, cover, full of something. 面, face. Because right now dust is covering my face. And 鬓如霜. 鬓means the hair that's on the side of your head. 如, as, 霜, frost. So here it means the hair has turned gray. I have a lot of pain, but I don't have a place to go and to talk about it, to talk to you. And even now when we meet, you may not recognize me because now I'm covered in dust and then my hair has turned gray. So that's the first part of this poem. Then the second part starts to describe the dream that the poet has, and it's in the symmetrical form in terms of character count, and it's rhyming and its tonal pattern to the first part. 夜来幽梦忽还乡. 夜, night, evening, 来, come. So when the night comes, 幽梦 means dreaming. 幽 is a character that has many meaning. You can decide what it actually means. I think it's up to really the reader to decide. 幽 can mean something that's very remote, very hidden. It can also mean the underworld. For example, a ghost can be called 幽灵, 幽, spirit. So 幽 has many meaning. At night, when he starts to dream this dream, you can say it's a very lonely dream. It's a dream about the dead people. 忽还乡, suddenly returned to home, to hometown. So it means the poet had this dream at night, and suddenly in his dream he returned home. 小轩窗正梳妆. 小轩窗, a small window. So in front of a small window, 正梳妆. 正 means ing, is, something is happening. 梳妆 means make oneself presentable. That would include doing your hair, putting on your makeup, and it happens in front of a mirror. So it's describing in the dream he see in front of the window and sitting in front of the mirror, the wife is combing the hair and then putting on makeup. 相顾无言，唯有泪千行. 相顾, looking at each other. 无言, 无, not having, 言, speech. So they're looking at each other in silence. 唯有泪千行, only having tears, 1,000 rows. So in his dream, he suddenly returned home and seeing the wife combing the hair, putting on makeup in front of a mirror by the window. And then they look at each other in total silence and there's only tears running down their face. Yeah, that sounds really sad. I mean, by this point, this poem has already become really heartbreakingly sad. Then the last line. 料得年年长断处，明月夜短松冈. 料得, expected, something can be expected. 年年, every year, year by year. 长断处. Now, if you still remember what I talked about in the first video about the word 断肠, broken intestine. This is just reversing that order. 长断, intestine, broken. So you can see it has a higher occurrence in literature. It just means heartbroken. Inside, totally screwed up. 处, place. So it's expected that every year this heartbreaking place. What is this heartbreaking place? 明月夜短松冈, bright moon night. 短松冈, short pine tree mountain. So basically, the wife's grave, tomb, is in the mountain surrounded by pine trees. And he's saying it's expected that every year the heartbreaking place for him is on the night when the moon is shining on the grave, and the grave is of his wife, and it's located in the mountainous place with pine trees surrounding it. That concludes this epic, sad poem. I mean, every line in this poem is just beautiful and worth remembering, and you can apply that to a lot of different occasions. For example, you can just say 相顾无言，唯有泪千行, describing when people are looking at each other in silence and not speaking, but there's a lot of emotion going on. Or 纵使相逢应不识，尘满面，鬓如霜. It's like if you've parted with somebody for a long time and you want to express that now even when we meet you may not recognize me because I have changed a lot. Or 十年生死两茫茫，不思量，自难忘. It's like it's been so long, but I'm still thinking about this person. And even when I don't think about the person, I never really forget about them. So you see, this poem just has so many little snippets that just can be used in all kinds of situations, in romantic storytelling, in dramas, in your life, like when it's necessary. So I would highly recommend, if you love Chinese poetry, remember this whole thing because it's just so useful and it's so well written. Literally, I don't think there's another sadder poem about grief, about one person being alive and the other person dead in a romantic relationship. I shall end this video with me reciting this poem again, and I'll see you in another video, still talking about poetry's enjoy of life. 十年生死两茫茫，不思量，自难忘。千里孤坟，无处话凄凉。纵使相逢应不识，尘满面，鬓如霜。夜来幽梦忽还乡，小轩窗正梳妆。相顾无言，唯有泪千行。料得年年肠断处，明月夜，短松冈。